Welcome in. It's the Second Cup Podcast. I'm Rick Gaiman, and this is your recap episode for this week's Travelers Championship, an event that has done it once again. An instant classic. Greg Ducharme is here. Gregors.
Oh, what a week, Rick.
What a week.
What else can you say? This was, it was incredible. It was exciting. It was painful. It was agonizing. All the emotions. I had a really hard time watching this down the stretch. It was that tense.
If someone says to you, why do you like watching golf? Show them this one. This will be instantly, just like the Canadian Open was when Nick Taylor won it. This will be one we look back at 6 months from now, maybe even 6 years from now, depending on how the careers of these guys go. Just the way it played out, and we're obviously going to talk through the whole thing, but I mean, that was just chaos. I don't remember seeing anything quite like that in recent memory.
There are so many different perspectives as well.
Yes.
You know, you can look at the guys that were at 8 under heading into the day, and man, did they have a chance? You know, they can look back on things and say, geez, the door was open. The guys in the final grouping all could have won. The guys in the second to last grouping all could have won. And ultimately, the door was left open for a lot more to happen, and it did. It did. And there were moments when you felt like you knew what was going to happen, but, you know, it wasn't necessarily a firm leg to stand on, so to speak. And it just, there wasn't a single moment, right? It was a slow change in momentum, which was just fascinating to watch.
Well, here's the perfect storm. And the perfect storm was a storm that ran through central Connecticut this morning, because the perfect storm allowed us to go from 2 balls to 3 balls, which allowed Russell Henley, Keegan Bradley, and Tommy Fleetwood to all get into the final group, which then, in turn, as this thing unfolds, they're all doing it from the same group. And then on top of that, Greg, you've got Russell Henley trying to play spoiler, who's already a signature event winner, coming off of a 61 that he shot on Saturday. Keegan Bradley, who is the, gets credit for Connecticut, New England. Now he's going to get credit for all of the United States. He's just the adopted son of everywhere, right? And then Tommy Fleetwood, I don't know if you've heard, 41 top 10s on the PGA Tour without a victory. Not only was it the perfect storm that got us into 3 balls, but the trio of potential outcomes, with all of them having their own wrinkles and webs to weave off of that.
And it's perfect because Henley is kind of a spoiler, right? He was a big time spoiler already this season, trying to do it again. And you have Tommy Fleetwood, who, like you mentioned, hasn't won yet with a 3-shot lead. So that's that leg that's not so firm to stand on. And that just added to the drama even more. If that was Scottie Scheffler in Tommy Fleetwood's shoes, it's a totally different story, right? You're not worried at all. It's over. If it's Scottie, if it's Rory, it's over. If it's Xander, it's over. But it wasn't. It was Tommy Fleetwood, and it made the whole day. You know, you never felt comfortable. There was never a point where you felt comfortable.
A 3-shot lead in golf it's like a 2-goal lead in hockey. It's just an awkward amount, right? You know, a 3-shot lead feels like a lot, but you get multiple shot swings all the time. It's not big enough to cruise. It's not small enough to continue to be aggressive. It's an awkward amount. And we saw a 2-shot swing immediately out of the gate when Tommy Fleetwood bogeyed 1 and Russell Henley birdied 1. So just like it goes away so fast. 3 shots feels like nothing.
Right, because it can happen just like that, you know. And then you add this golf course into the mix where, look, it's not one of the more difficult courses on tour. It's a golf course that typically yields tons of birdies, but it also yields tons of volatility, especially when the conditions are as they were most of this week. I mean, I guess you could say all of this week. Yesterday, on the calmest day, world number one makes a double and a triple in the same round, a triple in the first hole. You know, that kind of thing. You have Justin Thomas making a quad. You know, every score is possible out here. And that leads to really big swings. And for that reason, a 3-shot lead doesn't feel very safe, especially when you know what kind of pressure this Tommy Fleetwood is under, right? I mean, it's always a case where heavy lies the crown, if you will. But when you're Tommy Fleetwood and you've never finished a tournament wearing that crown before on the PGA Tour, it's even heavier. And right from the rip, I mean, it was the bogey at 1 and then 2 3-putts at 3 and 4. It's like, geez, this is not going well.
Speaking of wearing a crown, I know a man who wears our crown because he won our one and done last year, and we have got him coming in. There he is, Mark Immelman. Mark, it's good to see you.
What's up, boys? How are we doing?
How are you doing? We're only 5 minutes in. We've just been teasing this. We haven't even really talked about the outcome or the end of this tournament yet. We've just been setting this up as an instant classic. How was the feeling at the golf course?
Feeling was electric. Am I allowed to cuss on the show?
Yes.
Golf is a bitch. I was with Rory's group today, and Rory was animated and had some swagger and some bounce in his step and was hitting some great shots and some not so great shots, but scored well. And so it was a fun afternoon for me. And then we had to hang around for a potential playoff. And as it was coming down the stretch, we just walked up to the top of the walkway where the players exit, exit sort of stage left en route to scoring in the clubhouse. And so myself and Craig and Tyler, my 2 on-course guys, are up there. And I see Tommy's wife sort of walking up the hill a little bit to stand by herself after Tommy's left his approach shot sort of to the front edge of 18 green. And you could see she's sort of disturbed, visibly disturbed. And then Rory and Ryan Fox come out, and she turns around and looks at Rory. And the golf is still happening. Tommy hasn't hit the birdie putt yet. And she looks at him, and he just hugs her. And he just holds her for a while as if to say, I know what you're going through right now.
Oh, man.
Exactly. and I looked at it, was heartbreaking, and the tournament wasn't even over yet. And so, I mean, the place was, you could feel the electricity. It was dripping with emotion. And then you got Russell Henley all of a sudden pitches one in, and the place goes bananas. And now we're in play for a playoff. And I'm also considering, now, gosh, and I'm thinking in my head, if Tommy does not win this thing, I've got to go and interview this guy. And as I say that to you guys, and as I share that, I get like a cold shiver across my body. Because what do you say? Anyhow, so he hits this birdie attempt from long range, and you can see he whiffs it. And it comes up shy. And I look at the guys next to me, and I glance at her, and she just hangs her head. And from then on, it's almost like it seemed like it was inevitable, that Keegan was going to win, that the crowds were going to carry him there. And then when Tommy hits this putt, that was sort of low. And as I was watching our show a little bit today, I noticed a number of the putts he had coming down the stretch were left to right, and they were missed on the low edge. I think a 14, there was another attempt somewhere where it slips my mind, where when I had him on Saturday, everything was rolling in the hole with speed. And he played incredibly well and so impressive. And when he had this uphill left to right thing that missed on the low edge, I'm like, okay, this is done now. There's no playoff. This thing's over. And of course, Keegan knocked it in. And, you know, it was a fitting celebration of the local hero. But in the same vein, it was just freaking ghastly. If you're anywhere close to the Tommy Fleetwood camp, and I'll tell you this, a lot of folks are, because they realize, to Greg's point, the crown that he is trying to carry.
It was, I'm glad you used the word inevitable, Mark, because that is how it felt for a lot of, basically from 15 on. From my rough math, they all stood on 15, the big three here, tied. And it was a bogey that Tommy made at 16. Russell made one as well. But just think about this final hole, Greg. So Tommy Fleetwood goes to the 72nd hole with a one-shot lead. Pipes one down the fairway. There had only been 2 bogeys made from the fairway all day. He makes par. He's in a playoff. We know the story. He's indecisive over the approach shot. He ends up switching to a pitching wedge and leaving it a club short. As he lags one up there short to 6 feet 8 inches, not only is that putt outside of Keegan, so now he's got to give Keegan the read, but the chaos of Russell Henley chipping in, and you could see Tommy's face in the background of like, everyone's doing something but me, right? Keegan had already stuffed one. Keegan was already going to have a chance to make birdie. Now Russell Henley's chipping in. My chances of winning outright are shrinking. My chances of being in a playoff are getting even smaller. Everyone's hitting a shot except me. And then he misses the putt.
And, the strange thing is he did do something, just not what he wanted. He opened the door for this amazing celebration. And he opened the door, like we already touched on what happened early on, right? He bogeys 1, 3 putts, 3 putts, 4. Then he kind of gets the wheels back on, and there's some moments where he makes a really nice birdie at 11, birdie's 13. He's doing what he should now at this point. And he gets to 14 and stuffs it in there. And that's when I'm like, all right, we get to 17, we're cruising. And he misses it. Doesn't get it up and down at 15. 16, it goes over the green. Putt goes to 20 feet, or the chip shot goes to 20 feet. It's like, oh no. And then he hits it in the bunker on 17. I'm like, not like this. I love Keegan. I wanted Keegan to win, but it's like, not like this. And I'm just... I am in pain. I'm feeling so much pain because what's happening, and it can't be again. Like he's right there. He's standing on 14. He has a chance to take a 3-shot lead. Keegan makes bogey at 14. This is the opportunity to. You got 6 feet 6 inches to win the thing. Essentially, it doesn't go. Then 17. After he hits it over the water, I'm like, I take a breath. Like, okay, yeah. He didn't fat it into the water.
Right.
Now
we saw which we saw Scottie do earlier this week.
Exactly. And then he rips his putt by, 5 feet by, and makes it. Now I'm like, okay, we have no water to deal with on 18. Somebody makes a birdie and forces a playoff. It's good on them, but at least it doesn't feel like Tommy choked it away. And that now it does feel like Tommy choked it away. And so while on one side, it's an extremely, when we get to Keegan, it's extremely exciting, but from this perspective, it's extremely painful.
May I add something to that, please, Rick?
Please.
Because look, I didn't have Tommy's group today. I had him yesterday, but I was involved in the playoff there at the RBC Canadian Open with Nick Taylor, and Tommy was in the playoff. And it goes a few holes, and then Nick makes this trans-country bomb from 70 feet to win. And so Tommy comes up shy after being the low medalist tied. And now today he's playing alongside Keegan, who makes a seagoer on 9. What was that thing? It was like, I think Jim Nance called it as JJ Spawn or something like that.
Yeah, so he had a 66-foot putt there, and then he made
a 15.
30-something footer on, it was 110 feet combined on those 2 holes.
And that adds to the inevitability. So, you got Keegan making a thing from all over Cromwell, Connecticut. And Tommy's got putts like that. That wedge he hit into 14 was special. Because with a hole all the way in the back there, you don't want to miss it long. You're playing from above a hill there into this alcove of trees. It's wind in off the right, but you can see the flag's not moving by the green. So when the ball... the tree level. Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, you got me. When the ball descends below the tree level, then you don't know what it's doing. And he stuffs one in there, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Because you make that, then you take advantage on 14. But he misses low, and then Keegan makes the bomb. And then I'm like, oh, gosh, here we go. And with Greg, I was the same way. Now, I'm focusing on my job. But all of us are looking back at Tommy. I mean, every single person that works in the tour have kind of got, we love Keegan, to Greg's point, but you got your fingers crossed for this Fleetwood, and we're holding thumbs, just for the record. And when he hit the fairway bunker shot on 17, we took a collective sigh of relief. And then when he hit the tee shot down the 18th fairway, Greg, then I'm like, okay, now we're all right. And then when he had the approach shot first down 18, I was like, this is an advantage now, so he can get one in there close and put some pressure on Keegan. And when he kind of thicks the wedge a little bit, I think, then it just opened the door. It's like someone swung the door open for Bradley. And he was going to do one thing, because that's the Keegan Bradley that he is, and it's why he should be playing his Ryder Cup team now. He just marched on through this thing with a great wedge shot in the one putt.
I do. We will give Keegan his flowers momentarily, but Greg, the kind of the position between what we saw from Tommy in the first 3 rounds, a guy who was really aggressive putting. If he missed it, it was going past the hole. Seemed to have great touch and feel around the greens. We didn't see much of that on Sunday, and I imagine world-class player with skills out the wazoo, probably that's just pressure, man. Just can't feel his hands, right? I mean, it was just a completely different guy.
Well, he made 1 bogey in the first 3 rounds. 1. And he comes out today and makes 5.
He made 3 in the first 4 holes.
3 in the first 4 holes. He was 14th entering the day in strokes gained putting. He had, I'm just double checking this, but I believe it was 0 3-putts. 0 3-putts in the first 3 rounds, 2 in the first 4 holes, and 3 total on the day. It's a totally different guy, right? The guy that leads the field. Well, he ends up leading the field too, but he led the field going into the day in strokes gained tee to green, loses strokes off the tee and approaching the green. All the performance metrics take a slide. They take a slide from his performance this week. They take a slide from the normal Tommy Fleetwood that we see. And unfortunately, you are not going to win very many golf tournaments. It better be a U.S. Open if you're going to shoot over par in the final round and win, because it doesn't happen. I mean, it's so rare. It has to be such an excruciatingly difficult test. It's certainly not going to happen at a Travelers Championship. So you just can't count on that to win. And unfortunately, this is what makes winning so special on the PGA Tour.
Rick, one more thing just to build on that, and some inside the ropes insights. So when we got done, we were waiting up by the clubhouse, and there's like a seating area there. And Shea Knight comes out of the locker room. That's Victor Hovland's caddy. And he is now going, he looks at me, goes, "What's going on?" So he sits down and he's watching the golf on our monitor with us. And he's like, "Come on, Tommy." And then when Tommy hits the wedge a little heavy, he looks at me, he goes, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I said to him, "Winning is hard." And his response was, "Yeah, it effing is." Because now this is a guy who's been on a winning bag in Victor Hovland a few times now. And for a PGA Tour caddy to acknowledge that it's not like a swan song when you're marching down the final few holes when it's tight. And then sadly, it's like winning, you got to play well enough, things go your way, to Greg's performance metrics. But you just feel like the burden that Tommy is carrying is just so much heavier right now. And I can't help but think, because Rory's fresh on my mind because I had him for 3 hours today and we were chatting, I think of Tommy's burden, and then I think of Rory's burden and how he finally shed that gorilla off the back, But for Shea Knight to go, "Yeah, it is. Winning, that is. It's difficult." It's telling when even guys who are close to the world's best will admit that.
One more thing on this. I want to get your thoughts on it, Rick. Last week at the U.S. Open, we talked a lot about the Players Championship for JJ Spawn, and how that was useful for him in the U.S. Open. That was one piece of scar tissue, if you will. right? One failure that you learn from. How many, at what point does it become something you don't learn from, but something that you fear?
Yeah. Well, a bit of scar tissue, I think, goes a long way. A lot of scar tissue, I think, starts to become detrimental. So think about, Tommy's, two closest calls, right, are the home country boy beats you in a playoff with a ridiculous putt, and then the hometown boy just kind of guts you on the 72nd hole, and yeah, I'm not sure there's a lot of learning going on today for Tommy. I think it's a lot of just sorry,
pain,
quite honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what all the people go there say? Well, you learn a lot more from a loss than you do a win. I'm not so sure what more he can learn. I think this, because I talked with Dottie Pepper, who caught up with Butch Harmon this morning, and Butch has been helping Tommy. And one of the goals that Butch had given Tommy was to swing the putter freely and roll putts by the hole, very much like Tiger Woods did. And, and then when it rolls by the hole, don't stress, just watch the ball beyond the hole, because you get the advanced read in it. So Dottie mentions this to me before the show, and then she gets it into the show on the 18th hole, or 17th, or whenever it was, after Tommy whips one by there. And my brother Trevor, because all of them there in the booth, except for Nance, are tournament winners, Trevor goes, yeah, well, it's a lot harder than Tiger makes it sound, because when you're standing there and you're like, I got 20 feet and I'm going to rip this past the hole, and it's okay because I'm going to watch the ball on the other side. When you've got that lead, you can just kind of, sort of limp the ball up to the hole and tap in for par. Well, if Tommy's going to learn something, this one's going to hurt. But if he's going to learn something, maybe it's just to be like, oh, well, I've been so close a few times and I've come up short. I may as well just crank every putt at the hole and beyond the hole from now on and just see what happens, because the alternative clearly hasn't worked in the PGA Tour.
Yeah, his don't give a bleep meter has to go all the way down.
Yes. Redlining.
When you stop caring, golf becomes a lot easier. We've seen that, but easier said than done. Well, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, the door started to open, and the man who kicked it wide open for his second Travelers Championship victory, none other than Keegan Bradley. And Greg, we were talking about this, but the 64-footer that he makes on 9 for birdie, the 36-footer that he makes on 15 for birdie, the shot that he hits into 17 to just get a perfect, or excuse me, into 16, a perfect lead, gets out of 17 with a good 2-putt par, and then the way that he plays 18, hits it short of 5 feet, gets the read from Tommy, make it you win, miss it you go to a playoff, never misses the center of the cup.
And how nice is it to have a perfect read on it too?
It's just unbelievable.
You can't make it up. I'm glad he remembered to move his mark back. Right, he literally had to move his mark. So again, you look at what Keegan did today, and it was still very up and down, right? This wasn't a perfect charge. It had elements. There were moments where this felt like, here comes Keegan. And time again, he kind of, backed off with a poor shot or a poor execution. Like, he's getting there. Number 6 is a great opportunity. He's hitting it better than anybody else in the final group, in my opinion, and makes bogey at 6 from greenside. That was disappointing. Drops the bomb on 9 and then immediately hits it to the right and has no shot on 10. And it's like anytime he built momentum, he took a step backwards as well. But then once he got into those last 4 holes, he owned them. He stepped up, he dominated them. And it was beautifully done. And he just made sure he did enough to hang around and be there. And that's what great champions do. Especially guys that rack up a lot of wins. You're there, and when something goes your way, you're able to take advantage of it. A lot of things went Keegan's way today, but when you get that opportunity and it's time to step up and take it, he did. That's what you have to do to win PGA Tour events. Whether you're in the lead or trailing, you got to take it. And this 68 for Keegan today took it outright.
Keegan is to me, Mark, the closest to, and I don't know how I want to phrase this because I don't want to call him a real athlete, but like a competitive athlete where you see in other sports, a football player makes a great play, they get up, they celebrate. Keegan is fist pumping par saves on Friday afternoon at the Travelers Championship, and he always gives you, the double fist down when something good, and he is just so locked in. You'd think he was playing in the NBA or playing in the NFL, and he loves that moment. He loves to be able to step on somebody's throat.
That's why he's a great match player. That's why, if you're talking about match play, which is the ultimate kind of measure of the moxie and the will of a guy, because you get the sense that Keegan sort of wills the ball in the hole. And for a fact that all the mental and the emotional stuff, not the swinging of the golf club, Keegan doesn't miss a beat there. You can see by the pre-shot routine. He's the ultimate visualization guy, and he's the ultimate I don't go till I feel ready guy. So that speaks to how much the game is mental to him. Because I'll tell you this, his warm-up today was not good at all. He didn't hit the thing worth flip on the range, but it doesn't matter because it's Keegan and he's going to find a way. And he sort of proved that. But I must add though, Greg, you talk about some of the play and he shot 2 under and he took it. I will say, whereas Friday was really difficult with these gusty winds that were blowing upwards of 30 miles an hour across the golf course, today was blustery and not easy. If you were on the wrong side of some of these holes, you're going to have a tough time. And the rough had grown and it was pretty lush. And there were lots of situations where the greens were receptive enough, but there was some hot spots and there were some soft spots. So if you caught a hot spot, the ball wasn't going to hold the green, even with some sort of a scoring club in the hand. So it wasn't the war of attrition that the US Open was, but it was the kind of thing where it wasn't a display of golf like we saw in hot, humid conditions from Fleetwood on Saturday, where it's like light breezes just to cool you down, receptive greens, ball striking display from Tommy, rolling the putts well, shooting 62, 3, whatever he did. Today was like, some blue collar about you. And Keegan's blue collar. He is sort of the Ian Poulter of American golf in a way to me.
Ian Poulter's an interesting comparison. Because Rick, you use that competitive, like an athlete in other sports.
Yeah.
What's cool to me is there was a time in Keegan's career where fans hated that about Keegan.
I used to hate Keegan Bradley.
Now
I thought he was neurotic and annoying and a little dorky and all this stuff. I love this man, and I will run through a wall and I will go to battle for him.
It's common.
I'm fearfully may spontaneously explode at Bethpage Black in just a few months' time.
I know we might never see him again.
He is so intense, and I find it great to watch. But some of the stutter stepping, it really used to bother people. But I think Keegan has changed, and as a result, Keegan acts a lot different when he's in front of a microphone now, and acts the same way on the golf course. And all of a sudden, the perception of him has changed into this is cool instead of this is annoying. You still get the aim point guys that don't. If you're not a fan of aim point, you're not going to be a fan of his green reading. But the will he has to win, the will he has to compete, he just brings it week in and week out, and it's really like the model because he hits it great every week, and then all of a sudden the putter gets hot and he's right there in the mix, and that's what happened this week.
Well, Mark, that's PGA Tour win number 8, and the year that he is having, are we there? Are we at the point now where if he does not pick himself for this Ryder Cup team, it would actually be detrimental to his own team from a captaincy standpoint?
Well, if we are honestly listening to ourselves before I answer this question, and we listen how the three of us are kind of glowing about this guy and his mental capacity and how willful he is and how he finds a way, because match play is the ultimate, I've got to find a way to beat you. It's that mano a mano thing. I've been saying that he shouldn't play unless he earns an automatic spot. The performance today, I'm not so sure there are many golfers on the American team that could man up to this guy. Now look, late September is a long way away. There's a lot of golf ahead of us. There's still lots of water to come under the bridge. But if things remain the same, I think he should be a playing captain. It's not going to be easy because there's so many commitments. But look, his vice captains just have to step up and assume the role and do what they're supposed to do.
Is it even possible to be a playing? Should he even try to be a playing captain, or should he just say, listen, I'm going to pick myself and I'm going to hand the clipboard over to one of my vice captains and I am now a player, and that is that?
Well, I have, since they picked him, thought that it was a mistake for this reason, because it puts your, okay, it's a really tough spot for him to be in, because he's been saying, well, I really want to be the captain. If I make the team on points, I'll play, but I want to be the captain. But he's also said, well, I'm going to take the 12 best guys. Like, if you ask him if you're going to pick live players, I'm going to take the 12 best guys. Well, he's one of the 12 best guys. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And he has been even before this win. So now you got to take the 12 best guys, which includes you, and that changes the role. Ultimately, you have Brandt Snedeker as one of the vice captains, who's the next President's Cup captain as well. And I do think this is not going to be an official renaming, but I think a lot of the workload will be done by, or should be done by, Brandt and the other guys.
I heard a very interesting comment before our show this morning, because this was getting talked about between us and some of the Golf Channel announcers. And I can't remember who said it, but the statement was, would you rather be a winning player or a losing captain? And I was like, that's pretty poignant if you think about it. And to Greg's observation and what you say there, Rick, he is one of the best 12 players. And so, yes, he should play. So who knows if this is a play in a playing capacity or not. But as far as relinquishing the captaincy, I don't want to say that the PGA handed him a bone because of the fact that, honestly, we all know he was snubbed for Rome. Let's be real. Because today, in fact, was the anniversary of when he got the call from Zach saying, you're not on the team, big guy, when he was inside the top 12. So it wasn't like they were like, yeah, this is like we're making up. Let's be friends after the last debacle. And Keegan would happily do that because he bleeds red, white, and blue. Man, he'd be the shoe shine guy on the team if you would let him, if he got to wear the uniform, if he could be a part of this team winning. So, I mean, he's all in. So I don't know if he would relinquish the captaincy because he's so invested in the whole thing now too.
Okay, well then if he doesn't relinquish the captaincy and he doesn't pick himself, then I will have to knock his captain's picks when they come out. And I will say, you are a bad captain because you haven't picked yourself. And if the U.S. loses, it's because you didn't pick yourself. And now I blame you. And
yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, you gotta have both sides of it.
Hey, Greg, he's just going to do like Tiger in the President's Cup for Royal Melbourne. When Tiger sits down, he goes, and my third pick is I'm going to pick Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
like it's a different guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Keegan Bradley.
He should get it out of the way and pick Keegan Bradley first.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get it out of the way. But you're right, Rick. It'll be if there was any other captain in there, this would be a bad choice to leave him off. He's probably going to move to either 9th or 10th.
Yeah, so early, I was seeing, like 9th-ish, which, there's obviously still some events remaining, but
he's playing next week. He is playing next week.
He's gonna continue to honor that after the win.
Okay. Well, he's in the field.
He is in the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Greg. If Snedeker was the captain and Snedeker did not pick Keegan Bradley, we'd be ripping him.
It'd be a snub.
Be a snub. Another snub.
Right. And that's the thing. Like Keegan he's going to make a great captain. So I'm not, but he was a bad choice for a captain because he's too good and too young, right? Too
Right.
likely to make the team. If you're trying to make up for snubbing him the year before, he got snubbed because he should have been on the team. I mean, his play is to a level where he's a player. He's very much a player. I just think it was a mistake. And we're seeing it now because he's playing that good. But now,
Of
I mean,
course he is.
that it can't be done. No, I don't. I think a lot of the captaincy role is done before the event starts. And he's clearly managing all that very well, because I know he puts a lot of effort into it right now and has been since he got the job. So I think I think they'll come in very ready. Question is, are you able to make the adjustments you need to make when you're playing? That's going to be the hard part. How many of these adjustments are you willing to hand over to the other guys? It's a hard thing to do.
Well, yeah, you bring a good point up there where, in the lead up, there's some trivial sort of things like, uniform fittings and uniform sizes and doing all that sort of stuff and meeting with players and feeling out the team, and you've got your board, you're moving folks around. But during the week, you're a person manager. You're an emotional, cushion for people at times. You're a motivator. So that's a large part of the leader's role. The captain at these events is a leader. And if the team's going badly, he's got to be the motivator. And if the team's going well, he's got to be the tip of the spear going, right, these are our groups. And you always got to stay ahead of stuff. And you've got to be very aware of how the players are playing, because you can use data, or they use data to make these groups up, and then they test them under pressure. But, sometimes you've got to be on hand enough as the coach, the captain, whatever, to go, data says this, but my heart, the captain in me says this, and we got to change on the fly because things might not be going our way. That's what the great leader does. So I would say during the event, the captain is quite engaged. And that's where, if you're playing captain, it's very, very hard. I almost think that Tiger got away with one down in Royal Melbourne in the President's Cup, because the US were getting drubbed, and then they came back with a famous singles romp for them to win. So it's like, well, Tiger won as a playing captain, but it certainly wasn't plain sailing. So, and the
Tiger also didn't play himself on Saturday all day, and he had his back as kind of an excuse.
Yeah.
Right. I'm hurt. I'm not playing. So he could captain.
So look, I guess it's a nice problem to have if you're Bradley, because he wakes up tomorrow morning and goes, am I going to play? Yeah, maybe. And then maybe on Tuesday I won't be playing. So we'll just all have to continue to guess. You know what? It's a nice problem for him to have.
It is. Now, one of the guys that will almost certainly be at Bethpage alongside Keegan, whether he's the captain or whether he's playing, will be Russell Henley, who fired a 1 under 69, chipping in on the last hole to add to what was an already chaotic and amazing scene. And that was a good high note for Russell, Greg, but there were a lot of kind of opportunities that he will probably feel like he let slip through his fingers during this round.
Well, making bogey on 2 is bad. And he didn't do it from the fescue. He hit it in the left intermediate, hits it over the green, makes bogey, makes a terrible bogey at 8, misses like a 3-footer. And 16, he 3-putts. So those 3 drop shots were all, in my estimation, quite avoidable. And now he bounced back nicely with a birdie at 9 and chips in with a birdie at 18. And all that's very good and well. But this was Tommy Fleetwood left the door open for Russell Henley too. And he didn't walk through it. Now, going into the day, I felt differently about Keegan and Russell, just because Russell shot 61 to get into that final group.
Yeah.
And we know how that goes. I kind of thought Henley would need like 66 today to win. 61, 66 over the weekend is, that's big boy stuff. So I give him a little credit from that regard, but it was 3 sloppy bogeys. Doesn't get 15. You know, it could have been a whole lot better for Russell.
Rick,
Yeah,
I think.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was going to say to Russell and to the final group. I think it needs to be. I don't know if you have. We need to acknowledge the fact that, you know, with the weather that rolled through this morning and things changed, and all of a sudden, Keegan got in the final group where he was going to be in the second to last group when they changed it from 2s to 3s. I think that had a big impact on proceedings. I feel like that probably changed the vibe, certainly for both Fleetwood and for Russell Henley, because Tommy and Russell in many ways are the same sorts of guys. Softly spoken, play a similar game, hit the ball the same distance. Then all of a sudden you've got Captain America in there, which is changing the tune huge, because there were lots of people out there pulling for Tommy. You know, I heard it on Saturday, we heard it on Sunday. It's like the crowds were trying to egg him along. But then when Keegan suddenly stuck his name in the hat and he was in the ring there, the crowd noise and the crowd support changed. They got behind their guys. So as far as, you know, both Russ and Tommy, the crowds and Keegan in the final group had an effect. Now, is that an excuse? No. You got to be a big boy, like Greg says, if you want to win PGA Tour events. And Russell just didn't bring it. But I look at him and I look at the guys that kind of played well last week at the US Open. They all looked a little tired. And he was in the mix at Oakmont, remember? So you're in the thick of it. So you're coming in here kind of maybe low on energy and you're playing on adrenaline. Then you have some of those soft mistakes early. I feel like that chip in on the last was almost incomprehensible. That was a miraculous shot that he hit. And that
Sweet
was
shot.
they're one of those last ditch efforts that just kind of went down for him. So that's when he got his burst of energy, but sadly it was a little too late.
The only thing that would have been better is a 3-way playoff.
No, it would not have been better whatsoever. Don't even bite your lip.
I know that playoff is a 4-letter word on this show, but that would have been just sick theater, like unbelievably.
What's it about this tournament and the RBC Canadian Open? They just seem to produce these fantastic frenetic finishes every single time we come to these places.
Well, the golf course is just perfect for it.
Yeah.
The golf course is perfect for it because you can make mistakes, right? They're short holes. You got wedges everywhere. Everybody is in the mix. Everybody playing in the tournament feels like they can go shoot a low score. So, and at the same time, if you don't hit good shots, you can get penalized pretty badly. It's tricky around those greens. You know, that you got 15 seems like it should be an easy birdie, but you can hit it in spots where it's a brutal up and down, and then you look foolish. You know, so it sets up perfectly for it, and it's one of the great finishes in all of professional golf.
Hey, Rick, there was somebody in the chat here that said something about Mark doesn't want another 8-hole playoff. You talk about scar tissue. That 8-hole playoff we had a few years ago with Russell, with Harris and with Kramer Hickok.
Yeah.
And it just kept on going. I mean, gee whiz, we do have scar tissue because the following week we win an extra 5 holes with Joaquin Neiman and Cam Davis. And I can't remember who maybe Troy Merritt or someone. I think it might have been at the Rocket Mortgage. So no, playoffs at this thing, we've had a bunch of them, and I didn't want to see extra holes. I didn't.
Well, it did not take extra holes. Keegan Bradley got the job done. Tying for second were both Tommy Fleetwood and Russell Henley. We saw a late charge from one Jason Day, who got himself into great position here, gentlemen. He was really the when you looked at the post round 3 odds, Vegas was kind of like this was a 4-horse race. You know, Jason Day and then the big 3 that we talked about. And Greg, a really solid start, birdieing the first, and he was actually bogey free until he got to the 17th hole, where he made his first blemish to put that on the card. But J-Day was fantastic throughout the bag this week. Yeah,
he really was. He's clearly swinging well. Love watching him swing. He's getting healthy, and you know that's a really important aspect. Interestingly, he hasn't been putting great this year, and he brought it with the flat stick today. Up until like 15, thought he hit a great putt. Somehow didn't go in, and then 17 was disappointing because that tee shot gets into the bunker like it did for Fleetwood, and he's giving it a go at the green, ends up in the rough. He's got to lay up, and it kind of derails his chances, because otherwise, he goes to 18 with a birdie and he could tie Keegan. So it's totally different. And he hit a great shot into 18 as well. So I was very impressed with what he did all week long. And it's cool to see Jason Day healthy. Anytime he's feeling good with his body, he seems to play really good golf.
Yeah, it's such a big difference, Mark, now that he's able to practice the way that he wants to and able to get his reps in, because, he has been so solid. And even some of the putts that he missed on Sunday were, they were perfect pro putts, missed them on the correct side with the right pace. And it felt like he was, for the most part, in the most control of his game, and got a little, he had to lay up on 17, got a little bit unlucky there, but it was impressive. I love to see Jason Day in this form.
Yeah, I tip my cap to Jason. Sort of inside baseball maybe now. Before Saturday's round, so we do our recon, and I'm chatting with Jason because I had his group, and so I looked at him, and I'm because he split with Chris Como a few months ago, and he's hooked up with Colin Swatton, his old coach, and so I'm looking at him, and he's hitting the ball from left to right, and old Jason used to hit draws hard and high, and I'm like, Jace, and he goes, yeah, I've gone to this fade shot a little bit more, and I'm like, this is a change, because remember, we've had crosswinds for 2 of 4 rounds over here. And if you used to seeing a ball go one way and you got a quartering wind off the left, and now you're fading the ball, because the fade he's hitting was quite soft. He wasn't hitting the irons as long as he normally does. So I'm like, wow, that's something to trust. And he looked at me and he goes, you're right. I'm so used to seeing a hard ball flight that, sometimes getting over this thing and trusting it takes a lot of doing. So I really tip my cap to him, because there were 2 rounds where he played solidly, where he was going with his fade shot and hitting it when you're facing these into left to right winds. He didn't pull it off on 17. The only thing you can see, it's not completely there yet, because it doesn't have the thrust behind it that the draw normally had. And sometimes I saw the fade shot sort of flutter. And when he played with Fleetwood, Jason would have been a half an iron longer than Tommy, and he was almost a half an iron shorter, just because of the way the ball was spinning up in the air. So clearly it's a work in progress, but it sort of passed the test of pressure this weekend. So I'm sure he's kind of buoyant about how things are going. And then to that putter thing, on Saturday, he hit a number of putts from that 20-foot range, 25-foot range. It was sort of right over the edge of the hole the whole time. And he hit one on 9 that looked like it should have been in. This is Saturday. And we're walking from 9 to 10. And I look back at him and I'm like, big guy, it's like the hole's got cellophane over the top of it. And he laughs. He goes, yeah, I feel like the hole's dodging my golf ball, because every putt I'm hitting, I think it's in. And then the hole's gotten out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned that on the air, that there was this sense of inevitability that he was going to make some putts. And he did later on Saturday, and they just didn't go down today. But suffice to say that the way he's rolling it, when he gets to reading greens pretty well, when he settles down with his fade, if I'm in the Jason Day camp, I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now.
T4 this week, T23 at the U.S. Open. Remember, he finished 8th at the Masters. He finished 8th at API. Some big boy finishes at some big boy events. Speaking of big boys, let's put a bow on this before we get to our recap of the wagers with the biggest of boys. That would be the number 1 player in the world, Scottie Scheffler. Now, we're looking, Greg, at his Sunday scorecard, and that looks incredibly Scottie-esque. That is, that's a birdie on 1, a birdie on 8, 3 birdies on the back, a bogey-free 65. That is just absolute vintage Scottie Scheffler. I'll also tell you, he shot a 62 on Thursday, a 69 on Friday. We talked about it on Friday night. How did he not win this golf tournament? Well, Saturday happened where he made a triple on 1, a very ugly triple, didn't lose a golf ball. He made a double on 8. He shot a 72, one of the worst rounds of the day and one of the worst rounds we've seen from him over the last 3 years.
It was extremely disappointing, and it was a terrible performance. It really was for Scottie Scheffler. I mean, think on 8, it was a back hole location, big long green, a back hole location. It was playing 218. I mean, he came up 40 yards short. Right, his ball went into the water. It never touched land. It splashed in the water. I mean, he probably wasn't trying to land it all the way back at 218.
No, he fed it
no
nothing,
way,
Greg.
but
Greg, he hit the ground
yeah.
before the bowler.
Yeah, right. He probably came up 20 yards short of where he was trying to land it. Full 20. From Scottie Scheffler, the guy who, he hits it every distance, and ultimately, it makes the difference. Right, he finishes at 12. If he doesn't make a double and a triple, he is at 17 and runs away with this thing. Even if he makes a bogey, even if he makes 2 bogeys there, right? You're talking. He's tied with Keegan Bradley. If those are bogeys, they're very uncharacteristic mistakes. I know it's so easy to just say if then what, but it's not like Scottie Scheffler to hit it fat. He also hit it in the water on 17. These are just uncharacteristic mistakes that we saw from him this week.
Greg, I love you. You were disguising a fat 6-iron from Scottie. Like, man, you should get into law. That was very, very good by you.
I wasn't trying to disguise it. I'm saying it. It's 40 yards short.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
Scottie just found out that golf is hard for the first time in the last 3 years.
Because he turned 29. Golf's hard when you get old.
He was way better when he was 28, wasn't
he? Do you think Marky was just a little grumpy on his birthday? Everybody's a little grumpy on their birthday.
I think so. I think it was the worst birthday ever. As my guy.
No, he's past his prime, is what he is.
Yeah, I think he's past his sell-by date. It sort of happens, and when you get on the wrong side of the equation, and I think we've said this before, when it's a bit of a birdie fiesta, and you're not playing well, then you try and force the issue a little bit, and if it's just not happening, sometimes you can't force it in golf. And he got on the wrong side of affairs there in round 3. But credit to him for birdieing the final hole like he did, because it was ragged, man. He was in the ball all over the show. And it was, I don't want to say laughable, because you hate to laugh at someone's misfortune, but Scottie's evil twin took over for about 4 hours over there. But you know what? He finished properly on 18 Saturday, and then came out and recovered and showed his class today. So, yeah, he sucked. He finished, inside the top 5?
He'll tied 6th.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Pathetic.
So. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, and we can poke fun at a guy who's made about $90 million in the last 3 years and hasn't missed a shot. I think it'll be okay. Here's the recap, because listen, we're professionals around here. We take you right from the broad. We get you off the golf course. We get you right on the pot, and we're going to get you out of here before Game 7 of the NBA Final starts. This is just going to be absolutely perfect timing here. So here's the recap of the wagers, gentlemen. Greg, I will just start with this one, because Justin Thomas should send Scottie Scheffler a bottle of wine, because JT was also terrible on Saturday, and Scottie took the heat for all of that.
Yes, that's very true. And this is disappointing. Justin Thomas finishes at 9 under and made a 9 on a par 5.
A 9. Right. And it looked like how I would play third. It was like the Monstars sucked the skill out of him.
Yeah, that's about right.
They sucked the driver out of his hand off the tee as well. That was out of that was out. No,
right, because he hits at OB.
Yeah, I understand you made a bad swing, but hang on to the golf club, please. The showmanship has to stop. When you nearly pin a person with your golf club, that's not right. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true, Mark. I totally agree. So maybe it was karma that caused the 9 instead of a 6, which he could have made, because he still had iron in hand. So that was very disappointing. Jordan Spieth, who knows what could have been, right? He withdraws through 12 holes.
Right scap. I mean, there were a ton of withdrawals. Right scap from Jordan. Victor said he felt a crack in his neck on the driving range. He withdrew after 2 holes today. There was an illness going around that dropped like 4 guys out of this thing. It was WD City out there.
Yeah. So that's kind of, it's painful for my winner without Scottie situations here with both of these guys, because I really think Jordan would have had a chance if he was healthy. Great to get a win from Harry Hall. Nice top 20 there. And we got a push in my round 1 matchup, which I hardly ever do. I liked that one. And they Jaeger and Thompson tie in round 1.
Yeah, the finishing position market was where we shined this week. Harry Hall, top 20 for Greg. Russell Henley, top 20 for me. That was plenty good. And then, Mark, your bonus bet, the one that was near and dear to your heart that you just could not go on without, was a winner.
Yeah, I can't see the grid, thankfully, because I think the rest of them sort of sucked.
That's right.
But yeah, all in all, I think the final signature event of the season lived up to the billing. And it was really fun to be a part of. And once again, the Travelers delivered. This event is fast becoming like a staple on the PGA Tour, and the people from Travelers love it, and the fans love it, and golf in the Northeast is a thing, man. It needs to come back here a little more often.
8 different winners in 8 signature events this year. Hard to argue with that. We are on the verge of Game 7. The Indiana Pacers are playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. Mark, go on the record and tell us who's going to win tonight, the Pacers or the Thunder.
Oklahoma.
Greg.
The Pacers.
Wow, I'll break the tie. I know nothing about these two teams. Let's go with the Thunder.
All right. Let's go with the Thunder.
Let's see what happens.
Done.
Any final thoughts before I get us out of here?
Heck of a week, boys.
Yeah, sensational week. Really cool week. Great, glad to be a part of it. And on to next. Detroit, here we come.
Detroit, here we come. Rocket Classic. But for now, I'm going to say big thanks to Mina. She does all the hard work behind the scenes. Mark Immelman, Greg Ducharme. I'm Rick Gaiman. This is The Second Cut. We'll catch you next time.